Okay. So, welcome everyone. This is our second meeting. Hi.
Sorry.
No worries. This is our second meeting for this seminar series we call 2025 Sydney Patristic Forum, and the topic is theology and philosophy in Byzantium. So we had a sort of introductory, preliminary mapping of the terrain last month. Yeah, last month. Yeah, I mean, time flies so fast, so quickly. We said, I said basically last time that my talk would be based on, and actually it was based on a full-blown article ready to be published, but wasn't published, wasn't accepted because it was regarded as too, abstract and theoretical. Now, tonight's talk is on Saint Maximus the Confessor. Actually, we are going to reflect on the place of Hellenic philosophy, or if you prefer, ancient Greek philosophy, in his works. Now, again, my talk is going to be based on a full-blown essay, article, just ready to be published, but was not accepted again, this time because it was regarded as too complicated, what can one say, So basically, in patristic studies, still we are not, familiar with introducing into the understanding of the fathers a history of religion's perspective. It seems so foreign, so strange, so weird, to approach the fathers from a history of religion's point of perspective. It's always through a historiographical, philological, a bit of, let's say, hermeneutic, philosophical sort of understanding, perhaps some socio-political contextualization, but please, no history of religion's perspective. It sounds too, syncretic, and, it becomes very dangerous sort of endeavor. Anyhow, as you will see, in my approach tonight, there's a very pronounced, very emphatic history of religion's perspective, even though we are dealing with philosophy. We explained last time, but I will reiterate that ancient Greek philosophy is not some sort of, let's say, pure thing, okay, unrelated to religion, okay, ancient religion, on the contrary. Now, the thing is that when you deal with Maximus, you are sort of tempted in a way. Maximus lives in the 7th century. Now, around 630, we have the last pagan philosophers, Simplicius and Olympiodorus, passing away. So you have this guy, who is born 10, 20 years, perhaps, after the last pagan philosophers. And, of course, you are tempted, as I said, in what sort of way is he related to the heritage, the legacy of ancient Greek philosophy, which was, even though, dying out, of course, but it was just like yesterday for him. He was so close to it. So it's in itself, it poses the critical question of where did he get his philosophical training from? how exactly is he to be contextualized in relation to ancient Greek philosophy? Should one put him in, some sort of, affinity with Constantinople, with Alexandria, or some other center of philosophy, ancient Greek philosophy? Let's say Athens. So this is how the idea came to me that Maximus, which in some respects one could say is actually the first Byzantine that really can be regarded as a philosopher and theologian at the same time. I mean, with a certain caliber. Of course, we have other figures before him, which perhaps we can regard as a Byzantine, but in scholarship they are regarded more as late antique thinkers. For instance, the Cappadocians. The Cappadocians, are they Byzantine, really, or are they to be understood as late antique, thinkers? I'm very hesitant as to designate them as Byzantine. I think that it's with Maximus, who is identifiable as a person historically, that one can see a distinctively Byzantine trait in his theology and philosophy. Of course, before Maximus, there is such a trait, perhaps not so much pronounced, from a Byzantine point of view, and that's Dionysius the Syro-Areopagite. But Dionysius the Syro-Areopagite is a name. He's not a person. It's a cluster of, at best, he is a cluster of texts. So we cannot really, talk about a person here, a thinker. So I've left him. As you see, he's not in the monthly meetings, and we start with Maximus because that's where I think we had to start. And of course, because he's so close to the end of ancient Greek philosophy. But is this end really an end, or is it a sort of, beginning when we look at what he did? Now, the reception of Hellenic philosophy, even the most cursory reading of St. Maximus' oeuvre, bespeaks his philosophical caliber. He is regarded as one of the philosophical theologians, fathers par excellence. In his case, we deal not just with a theologian well versed in philosophy. We have lots of those. Before him, for instance, perhaps, and within the Byzantine sort of atmosphere, we have, of course, Dionysius the Syro-Areopagite. We have the, what's that fellow called? The one who was really tricky with the terms, working on the terms of the Fourth Ecumenical Council. Leontius of Byzantium. So he is a theologian, quite good theologian, and quite well versed in philosophy. But Maximus is no Leontius, He's more than that. So he is a gifted philosopher in his own right. Furthermore, St. Maximus is one of the most telling examples with regards to the continuity of Hellenic philosophy in the East. Although, technically speaking, the pagan philosophical legacy came to an end in the late 6th century, essentially it went on living through new Christian contexts, forms, and questions. And questions is the most important topic. That's why we can say really that there is a Byzantine philosophy, because we have new philosophical questions. However, the compelling issue in this connection is where and through which channels could St. Maximus have received his robust philosophical training, and exactly how should one conceptualize his contribution to the continuation of Hellenic philosophy. After the closure of the Neoplatonic Academy in Athens, its vibrant hierophanic tradition came to an end and survived roughly for another generation or so, only as a memory through testimonies and comments in the works of Simplicius, for instance. Now, I said hierophanic, okay, tradition. There are two Neoplatonic traditions, two big Neoplatonic traditions. The one is the rationalist, more of a scientific, rationalistic twist. And the other one is the hierophanic, more religious trend. So in Athens, that's the trend we have, for instance, with Proclus. During the ensuing century, the fortunes of Neoplatonism will be determined by the much more rationalistic school of Alexandria. So Athens is the hierophanic school, Alexandria is the rationalistic school. And more precisely, the work of Olympiodorus the Younger, and his Christian students, Elias, David, and Stephen. Now, these guys are basically commentators on the logical works, basically the logical works of Aristotle. It is amongst the latter that most likely one should look for the intellectual milieu that nurtured philosophically St. Maximus. Okay, we don't have proof for that, but given the traits in his thought and the provenance of the Alexandrian school, it seems that he is quite closer to that tradition, the more rationalistic, the more scientific, logical, and not the hierophanic, theurgic, religious of Athens. Both in Alexandria and in Constantinople, where Stephen resided after 610. So Stephen, one of the students of Olympiodorus, left Alexandria and went to, basically, he was called by the emperor and he resided in Constantinople to boost the capital, philosophically. Nevertheless, St. Maximus will also become a recipient of the hierophanic school of Neoplatonism, this time indirectly. How? Through the Corpus Areopagiticum, through Dionysius the Syro-Areopagite, because he clearly belongs to the tradition of Athens, the theurgic one, and so forth. Now, through a work of his, St. Maximus, the work Scholia, okay, notes, comments, to the writings of Pseudo-Dionysius, that is, whatever can be attributed to St. Maximus over against John of Scythopolis. John, the bishop of Scythopolis, comes a bit before, a generation before Maximus, and he is the first one who, from Hellenic Greek point of view, comments on the Syro-Areopagite. Okay, we have two big traditions of commentaries. Now we know that for sure. Two big traditions of commentaries on interpretations, hermeneutics, on the corpus of Dionysius. One is the Greek one that starts with John of Scythopolis, St. Maximus, and continues. The other one is the Syriac, which is in many respects quite different. So, through his scholia to the writings of Pseudo-Dionysius, and more generally through the Neoplatonistic tropes, language, and ideas found all over his works, it can be ascertained that by rethinking the hierarchical crystallizations of Pseudo-Dionysius, okay, in Pseudo-Dionysius we have a world which is basically a hierarchy. Okay, and not only at this plane, the visible plane, the earthly plane, but also a second level, which is the heavenly plane. So he rethought those hierarchical crystallizations of Pseudo-Dionysius and provided the pulsating yet static system of Proclus with a further twist. It has a certain directionality and future-oriented movement. Now, what I mean here is that Pseudo-Dionysius, okay, this figure, basically turned Proclus, the Hellenic pagan philosopher, into a Christian. His thought, huh? How did he do that? The world, reality for Proclus is something living and pulsating. It's alive and it's, full of energy. Okay, and everything is in everything. So it's like a network which is truly alive. Now Pseudo-Dionysius takes this, okay, and in a way sort of bids it to stop, and it stops, pulsating, and he rearranges it into a hierarchy. He puts some order. Now Maximus comes and bids it to be alive again, but not going back to the pulsating sort of movement, which is static, okay? Because when you pulsate, you don't go anywhere. You just move and you stay where you are. Now the movement is, he takes that and he says, go ahead. And he gives the hierarchy of Dionysius a directionality towards the future. As we will see, he makes Pseudo-Dionysius conspicuously and explicitly eschatological. As he should be, as he was, but not explicite, as a Christian. At the same time, though, he drew upon the late antique Aristotelian commentary tradition, which is a huge tradition, by the way, in at least two capacities. On the one hand, as a former student of the Alexandrian Neoplatonic commentators, like the ones we saw, Elias, David, Stephen, and on the other by elaborating further on the relevant work of figures such as Leontius of Byzantium, the person who really, elucidated the terms of Chalcedon, and Theodore of Rhaetu. Theodore of Rhaetu is a great ascetic, who at the same time was a very philosophically gifted person, and really gave us some pertinent and spot-on definitions for cardinal terms used within Christology, basically. The following two examples may suffice with regards to the above. The first one is from the Questiones ad Thalassium. Okay, the questions, the topics, the problems he addresses and talks with Thalassius. Basically, it's response number 60, which is quite telling as to the Christological eschatology of St. Maximus, through which the Aristotelian teleology of Neoplatonism is decisively reformulated. So what we have, in Aristotle is a teleology. We have the famous, Aristotelian idea of entelechia, okay, which is, the propensity, the innate propensity of something towards an aim. So this is the teleology of Aristotle, from the potentiality to the reality. Now, this is turned into a eschatology, which again has a future-oriented direction, but it is much more about temporality and not innate natural being. In the original Greek, I have put in two sets of italics. It's the first one, the first text you have in front of you. In the original Greek, I have put in two sets of italics either what betrays distinctive Neoplatonic adaptations via pseudo-Dionysius, that's number one. Okay, wherever you see number one, that's Neoplatonic adaptations via pseudo-Dionysius, or distinctive Christian conceptualizations. That's number two. So, τούτο έστι, this is το μακάριον τέλος. Μακάριον τέλος. Telos here as Makarion. Makarion means blessed, the blessed end, goal, telos. Now this as an idea, as such, is distinctly Christian. It's a Christian conceptualization. Okay. Although telos is an Aristotelian notion, okay, it's not connected, linked with the experience of blessedness. Τούτο έστιν, this is, ο της αρχής των όντων προεπινόμενος θείος σκοπός. Θείος σκοπός, okay, the divine goal, the divine aim. So the end, the blessed end, is the divine goal, which shows us even more that the notion here is not Aristotelian, but Christian, distinctly Christian. And it's such as proepinomenos, as preconceived, to be such. For instance, in Aristotle, the divine itself is the goal. But not because, it does something. Okay? It doesn't do anything. It doesn't set itself as a goal. Everything else just wants it for what it is. So, and it becomes the end, the telos. Here, the understanding is totally different. It's a divine goal as an end, which has been preconceived to be such. So it's like a plan. It's quite different. It's very energetic on the part of the divine. Whereas in Aristotle, what we have as a telos and an objective and a goal and an end is very passive. I'm here, okay? You're coming to me, I'm not responsible. I haven't done anything. Whereas in the Christian conceptualization of the very notion, it's God that does, everything so that everything gets to that end. Προς τούτο το τέλος, towards this end, αφορών, looking, seeing, envisaging, God, ο Θεός, παρήγαγεν ουσίες, he produced the essences of των όντων, of beings. So it's very energetic, He's responsible for that. He does it on purpose. It's a purpose. The Aristotelian divine has no purpose. Τούτο κυρίως εστί. Now this, again, this is that, this is this. And now he says, this κυρίως mainly is what? Το της προνοίας και των προνοουμένων πέρας. It is this that constitutes the culmination of providence and all things under providence. Πέρας, το πέρας. We find πέρας philosophically for the first time in Anaximandra, the pre-Socratic. Πέρας and άπειρον. Now, the very term πέρας, okay, you have πέρας here and προνοιas. Pronias is providence. Now, someone might, be tempted to think that there's a Christian speaking here. No. There's lots of talk about providence in ancient Greek philosophy, especially in Plato, but especially after the Stoics. Stoics are all about providence. Now, what providence is, there, and what providence is in Christianity, of course, is different. But the talk, the discourse of providence as a pēras, a limit, culmination, where it stops, something stops, is very, very Hellenic, philosophically. And it's one of the things that are very intriguing, because we know that Neoplatonism, although within the Platonic tradition, has, in a way, encompasses other traditions as well, the Aristotelian and the Stoic. So there's lots of Stoicism in Neoplatonism, especially when it comes to providence. And then we have «η των υπ' αυτού πεποιημένων εστίν ανακεφαλαίωσης». And now he goes on, and this again is what? It's an anakephalaios, recapitulation. Of what? Of everything that has been created by him. Τον υπ' αυτού πεποιημένων. So what is interesting, he says that this is this, and it's this, it's this, and it's this, and it's this. So he speaks about something in successively different ways, some of them being distinctively Christian, and others being distinctively what? Pagan, Hellenic. And he doesn't have a problem. Okay, he combines these things. He weaves them, with one another. And you have a new sort of tapestry. Τούτο έστι το πάντας περιγράφων τους αιώνας. Again, he goes on. This is, the blessed end is the one that, describes all the eons. Και την υπεράπειρον και απειράκης απείρως προϋπάρχουσαν. The language here is, without mistake, very Dionysian, and of course very much, the language of Proclus. I've tried to translate that as this is the mystery that circumscribes all the aeons and manifests the supra-infinite and infinite times infinitely pre-existing great will of God. Which is very Dionysian. He likes, playing with his, the repetition of a term so many times that you lose, what is it? And is he saying something? He is. He's saying that, whatever words you can use, you never say something about God, you just say. And then after, some sentences there, πάντες οι αιώνες, all eons, και τα εν αυτής της αιώση, εν Χριστώ, in Christ, την αρχή του είναι και το τέλος η λίφαση. Now he doesn't talk just about the telos, but also the archi more emphatically, and in relation to Christ. Now, of course, this is number two. This is distinctively Christian. He takes all these, new tapestry, and he makes it even more. He sort of, accommodates it even more within the experience, the Christian experience, by relating it to Christ with the expression en Christo. Ένωσης γάρ προεπινοήθη των αιώνων, όρου και αοριστίας, μέτρου και αμετρίας, πέρατος και απειρίας. Classic bipolarities in ancient Greek philosophy. Okay, and it's amazing, you know. He said something so Christian, and you think he's going to, you know, just delve into, you know, the experience of Christ, and he does, but by using abstract philosophical terminology, you know. Because it is for Christ that this mystery, according to Christ, that all the eons and everything in the eons themselves has received its start and end of existence. For a unity of the eons was pre-envisioned, a unity between the definite and the indefinite, the measured and the immeasurable, the limit and the limitless, the creator and the created, between stasis and motion. So he chooses, you know, to use these very abstract, you know, in our terms, modern terms, we would say the very moment that he affirms his Christian experience quite boldly, he turns the discourse into scientific. And of course, this is very, very, you know, common in Eastern theology, Eastern thinking. It's not at all common in the West. It becomes common in the West when we reach the High Middle Ages with the great scholastics. Before that, you know, the West is, when the West theologizes, it's very practical, you know, very practical, life-based, not, you know, geometry and scientific terms and, you know, this sort of abstract terminology. Ήτης εν Χριστώ επεσχάτων των χρόνων. And he adds here very, very sort of needed now word. How important are words? Very much needed now so that he affirms his Christian identity. Επεσχάτων των χρόνων. At the end of times. Which is eschatology, you know? It's an eschatological confession. You know, eschatology wasn't invented by liberal Protestant theology, you know. It was already within a tradition. Because sometimes we think that eschatology is, you know, some sort of a modern liberal Protestant theological invention. No, it was already there. Φανερωθείς αγέγονεν, okay, πλήρωσιν. The notion of pleroma, fullness, which again is very, very Krishna as a notion. It goes back to Paul. Δούσα την προγνώση του Θεού διαυτής. Okay. Πάντι κατ' ουσίαν ακίνητον στή τα καταφύσιν κινούμενα της προς τε εαυτά και προς άλλα παντελώς εκβεβικότητα κινήσεως. This is very, very technical. It's ancient Greek philosophy. Let me translate it. I have already translated it. So that those moving according to their nature would pause around that which is totally motionless in essence and experience the living knowledge that provides them with the unalterable and unchanging enjoyment of the one who became known, blah, blah, blah. Which is a very Christian adaptation of Aristotelian language. So, within this example from question 60, I just wanted to show you how the Neoplatonic, and especially in its Alexandrian Aristotelian version, gets weaved with the Christian into something new. And this is done as if, you know, it's something natural. Okay, and what basically this proves, demonstrates, it's what scholars, in a fanciful way perhaps, but very pertinently call the continuation of ancient Greek philosophy in the East. A text like this is a proof of that. Now, if one were to visualize in a diagrammatic way the two understandings, that is the Maximian and the late Neoplatonic approach regarding the beginning, archi, and telos, continuum, which is the topic of discussion in the above text. That's the topic. How is the archi and the end a continuum, and how they are related? Then they would probably think of two different circles. This is the first figure on the other page. One endlessly replicating itself, which is on your right. Okay, you have a circle endlessly replicating itself. The Neoplatonic version. Where do you have an archi? Yes or no? Do you have an end? Yes and no. Why? Because the circle is endlessly replicating itself. So where is the archi and where is the end? That's why, ancient philosophy, especially when it came to the Neoplatonic tradition, would boldly say that reality has no beginning and no end. Although they would use end, but they would use end not in the sense of ending, but in the sense of, goal, which is different. It's one thing to say telos and mean, the inherent potentiality which becomes realized, and when that is done fully, then that's the telos. And it's another thing to say that when this happens, it also stops. This stop simply is not there in ancient Greek philosophy. But in the Christian understanding, okay, each and everything, okay, stops. And there is a restart. What's the term, Peter, what's the term, the very contemporary, very trendy term? The great restart. Reset. Now it's no coincidence, okay, that we are so fascinated with a reset, okay, because I mean, if God is dead and we are gods in God's place, then who's going to do the reset? We are. And that's why we have appropriated, the power of God to reset things eschatologically, and we reset them. Well, that's a side thing, but yeah, nothing is unrelated though. Whereby the beginning and the end coincide, in the version on your right, and another circle determined by an internal and intrinsic tension. You see the tension there with the two arrows. The Maximian version, according to which Christ is at once the beginning and the end of a linear evolution, as well as the center of everything that comes out of this evolution. So he is the beginning, he is the end, okay, precisely because he's the center. Now, of course, the center has a very specific name. It's incarnation. Okay, the parousia, the first parousia. Now, the second example is a set of definitions from the Ambigua. Number 3 below. I've given you, this one is the text, the Opuscula Theologica et Polemica, number 1, number 2, number 5, number 6, and letter 12. which bespeak both the continuity and discontinuity with regards to the logical tradition of the late antique Hellenic philosophy, especially concerning the understanding of particulars versus universals. I have put in italics what betray distinctive Christian qualifications of Neoplatonic formulations of Aristotelian logic. So, we have here the text, number 1, okay. You see, I've circled eni prosopo, okay, eni prosopo. Because, what is this? No real Neoplatonic philosopher would have used this term. They know the term prosopon. Why do they know the term prosopon? Because they have been at least 2 centuries in dialogue with Christian philosophy, theology. Okay, since the 3rd century with Origen. So they know the person, and they talk about the person, but they wouldn't use it in such a cardinal term, as a cardinal term in the definition. Now, the first one is translated, for the common and the universal are interchangeable, since they are predicated to those that are numerically many and different, and never in any manner limited to one person. So what is never in any manner limited to one person, okay, that's common, that's universal, and that's interchangeable. But, the Neoplatonics would have accepted this definition. But the point I'm making is, they wouldn't have used the term eni prosopo. That's Christian. Then the definition of ousia, of essence. Essence is, according to the fathers, the natural entity with regards to those that hypostatically are many. Okay, the natural entity with regards to those that hypostatically are many and different. Again, the term hypostasis. Again, they could use, the Neoplatonists used the term, but for them it was a peripheral term, a secondary term. It wasn't a cardinal, term. And it's interesting that here essence is so let's say clearly defined in relation, of course, as a natural entity, but clearly in connection to those who are hypostatically many and different. The ancient philosopher wouldn't have made that sort of focus, because essence, when an ancient philosopher, used or heard the word essence, they automatically sort of thought of the one, unchanging, eternal, common, same. They wouldn't have made any sort of connection to those who are hypostatically many and different. It would have seemed a bit weird. It's like from Sydney, going to Canberra via, Broken Hill.
Yeah.
Dabo, or Broken Hill. Why are you saying it this way? Well, it's right in front of you. Why? Number 3. If the universals exist, and you understand, of course, how these sort of definitions here are centuries before, in advance, relevant and pertinent to the great, controversy between the realists and the nominalists. We are in the 7th century. If the universals exist in the particulars and cannot in any way receive at all the definition of being and existing in themselves, so Aristotelian, it is evident to everyone that if the particulars dissolve, neither the universals remain. Okay, now Aristotle wouldn't go that far. This is radical Christian ontology, you know? You have a sense of reality within the specificity you witness it, you know? Reality is always through a specificity. It's within a specificity. If the specificity disappears, there's no reality. Number 4, the partial, merikon. That is the particular. Having in itself the entire universal, not part of it, that is the common and general in its fullest. Again, Aristotle never said something like that. Aristotle, you know, affirmed the existence of the universal within the particular, but he never implied that the particular has a priority. Number 5, what is hypostasis? Hypostasis is what exemplifies and circumscribes in something very specific both the common and uncircumscribed, as in the case of this or that person. Aperigrapton, aperigrapton, a term very, very Christian, and it played a very cardinal role in a century afterwards in the iconoclastic controversy. Aperigrapton, uncircumscribed, the divine, and how are you, painting it, how are you putting it, within lines. And 6 is about a very, very, very Christian understanding term. The one that most likely introduced the term was Leontius of Byzantium. The term is en hypostaton. Not hypostasis, but something that is within a hypostasis. En hypostaton. Characteristic of the en hypostaton is that it is known to be along with something else essentially different within a hypostasis in terms of an unbreakable union, or to be naturally within individuals as to its existence. A classic example of an hypostaton is the soul or the body. Both are an hypostata within the human, person, hypostasis. Now, again, if one were to visualize in a diagrammatic way the two understandings, that is the Maximian and the late Neoplatonic approach regarding the particular universal relationship, as presented in the aforementioned set of definitions, then they would probably think of two different sets of circles. And this is the other figure you have here, below. On the one hand, in the guise of a series of units that are self-contained, autonomous, yet at the same time interconnected and cognate. That's the Maximian version. The particulars, And you see, each of the particulars is full of being. Being in its fullest is in the specific. And the same in each specific. Now, the other figure, the one that looks like a flower there, sort of, resembles a conglomeration that shares a common core. This is the New Platonic version. Okay, whatever the forms of being, of reality, they are what they are thanks to a core. It's the core being, in being, that makes them what they are. And that keeps them together. Whereas the other one unites, but at the same time allows the particulars to be autonomous. Of course, these two diagrams betray an immense, tension. You see them like that, but it's immense. For instance, the Neoplatonic, one would say, seems so close to triadology, whereas the other one is basically something that has been, worked upon for the sake of Christology. And after the Christological, debates, the big issue is how to align the triadological terminology and it's the understanding of the meanings within triadology with the Christological understanding and with the meanings of the terms in Christology. Because there was a shift, and it would, demand lots of people, lots of energy, lots of centuries for these two distinct, not opposing, distinct ways of conceptualizing the divine as Trinity and as within the non-divine, which is Christology, the divine within the non-divine, the creator within the creation. So,
can you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm going to repeat it, but in other words. Yeah. What I'm saying is that the triadological discourse was far closer to the Neoplatonic understanding than the Christian tradition of theology, 3-4 centuries afterwards, like in the case of Maximus and other Neo-Chalcedonian thinkers. Because the point, what was at stake was different. Because in triadology, what is at stake is basically unity and distinctiveness. And one could say the same thing for Christology, but in an inverted way. So there you must talk about nature within and two natures within one. Two natures within one. There you were talking about a number of three persons, as one. So there is a certain inversion, a certain shift in the emphasis and the need for clarification. Eventually, the tradition will solve this problem. After John Damascene, the problem is slowly, gradually being solved. to the extent that it can solve, the mystery of God, But at least in a way that, things don't sound crazy. So, I would like to conclude with part of the conclusion I wrote in this article, which basically is a comment on a comment that Dominic O'Meara? Yeah. The famous historian of philosophy and theology. He suggested that if Pseudo-Dionysius transformed Neoplatonic political philosophy, don't forget every kind of Hellenic philosophy is political, so Neoplatonic as well. So if he transformed that political philosophy into a Christian ecclesiology, and if he is correct in his appraisal that in Pseudo-Dionysius, structure for the divinization of humanity, no room is provided apparently for the political order, for the state, in the salvation of man. Where does this go? I would put forward the view that St. Maximus takes on from the philosophically informed, transformed ecclesiology of Pseudo-Dionysius, and within the framework of his universalist vision of human and cosmic recreation, renders it inclusive of a positive role regarding the political order. So in a way, somehow indirectly. In this sense, his thought is much more Hellenic, that is, in philosophical terms, than the corpus Areopagitico. Yes, Dominic is correct, because it is as if the so Hellenic Pseudo-Dionysius, at the end of the day, isn't Hellenic because he leaves out the political, which is so Hellenic. You cannot be a Hellene without politics. It's impossible. The whole endeavor of philosophy is political. Is to achieve eudaimonia, which is the political goal of the city-state. And that's all out. And Maximus comes with a much more universalist, understanding of ecclesiology, cosmic, social, and so forth. And he, in a way, takes Pseudo-Dionysius and rebaptizes him within waters, Hellenic waters, political, and he gives him this thing that he was missing, which is politics. Now, furthermore, O'Meara's comment that the author of the anonymous Justinianic dialogue on political science during Justinian, the emperor, Justinian I, advocated a subordination of the church to the constitutional law of the state. That's what the author of this work espouses, in opposition to the primacy claimed by Dionysian ecclesiology. Now, this comment impels me to read into St. Maximus's all-comprehensive schema a more balanced and middle position regarding church-state relations. One that could be described as espousing autonomy. You saw the particulars, autonomy, within interdependence, but the particulars are, there's a line connecting them. Autonomy within interdependence, and to an extent anticipating the famous theory of synalilia of Saint Fontius the Great. Synalilia means that the state and the church as institutions work together for the sake of the world. It's the body soul sort of picture.
Leo 13.
Yeah.
He explicitly said that.
Sorry.
He said it explicitly. The snakes.
Leo the 13th.
He says that.
Oh yeah. He's not the only one. Yeah.
No, of course.
Yeah.
He obviously he's the latest version of that.
Yeah. It was quite. He sort of formalized it in a certain Byzantine way. Yeah, made it. It became very famous in the Byzantine circles. Even nowadays, the Greek state legally talks about the synalilia as one of the possible models of the church-state relationship. So I just wanted to add this political sort of twist at the end, so that we don't miss from our vision the political as very, very important for Hellenic philosophy, and of course as not missing from Maximus's understanding of the Hellenic tradition. Okay, thank you for your patience. So what time is it? Are we finished?
Passed.